We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. And always feel that your life has ultimate significance. The only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy.
Welcome to Civil Action. As many of you know, I am a personal injury and civil rights attorney here in the city of Pittsburgh. Many of you send your children to school, and you send your children expecting that when they come home, they're going to be brighter, stronger, and smarter than when they left. Well, there was a huge incident that took place at one of our very popular school districts, and it led to a very changing of the guard. The principal resigned, the superintendent resigned, many of the board members also resigned, and in comes the influx of two superheroes, in my opinion. I'm sure they probably wouldn't say that because they're so very humble, but here comes the influx of two very prominent members of our community, and I'm honored to have them here on my show, Civil Action. I have Dr. Woods and Dr. Harris. Excuse me, he says he's not a doctor. Superintendent James Harris. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of my show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace, for having us.
It's what, a year, 2 years in the making. Having you guys here and watching the many changes that have occurred, at the Woodland Hills School District speaks volumes of your hard work and your tenacity and your commitment. And I did some research. I did some research, but as many of you know, you guys weren't part of the school district when the incidents of tasering and bullying and some of the violent incidents occurred at Woodland Hills. You guys were brought in after the fact. So the question that I have is, having seen all that, many of us watched on TV, and I guess I was a part of, because I was a part of the case, but having watched many of those incidents, and you guys eventually got the call to come to the school district, what were your thoughts? I'll start with you, Mr. Harris. What were your thoughts about coming to Woodland Hills?
Well, I was located out in Berks County, right outside of Philadelphia, working as a superintendent, and started hearing and seeing the news stories that were going on out here. And I had only been to Pittsburgh maybe once or twice, and I thought I could come out and help. So I reached out to some folks, and I knew of the recruiting firm that was looking for a superintendent. And I called them and I said, I want to go to Woodland Hills to help. And they said, you're crazy. And I said, okay, fine. And long story short, I'm here. I wanted to come here. So I thought I could help and make a little difference in the lives of the kids.
Mr. Harris, you have an interesting background for what I understand. You worked at the Philadelphia School District. You also have a military background. You were in the Army. And you also were a military police person. Is that correct?
Yes, I was a military policeman.
Yeah, and you also did investigations for the Treasury Department.
Yeah.
A very long, storied, disciplinarian. And here you come to Woodland Hills. And I guess obviously you believed your commitment with respect to changing the environment and the culture that Woodland Hills obviously suffered from prior to you coming. And, I see that we also have Dr. Woods here with us, our Aliquippa resident, superstar football player, And he comes in, with this energy. I mean, this mass energy, this social media platform, and all of a sudden, this cloud, that was over the school district. Now I'm watching kids, participating in music, and they're dancing, and they're painting pictures, and they're taking field trips, and they're smiling, which is something I hadn't seen before. So welcome, Dr. Woods. Tell me, I mean, you saw all this stuff. What made you decide that you were going to come to Woodland Hills, and what was your philosophy?
Well, I was at West Mifflin, right across the river there, for several years, and I kind of reached the end of my tenure at West Mifflin, and I knew a lot of staff members, professionals in Woodland Hills School District, and we've been in communication that, hey, this would be a good fit for you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Did some research, had a couple conversations, and then I decided to take the leap. Coming from Aliquippa, we have a strong tradition and history with our athletics and our community, and I knew that Woodland Hills being equally as successful in the athletic realm, and I knew that I can collaborate and get with educators so that we can balance the athletic awards with the academic awards, and also build camaraderie and a family-oriented approach, as opposed to the neighborhoods and the people combating each other constantly.
You guys certainly, I don't necessarily want to, put ideas into your head, but certainly you had to know that there were going to be huge challenges and obstacles that you had to overcome. I mean, many of the things that, we saw on TV and so forth and so on, they had gone on for a very, very long period of time. So, after a while, it's just, it stopped being unusual and became part of the norm that these children were dealing with. Did you feel that perhaps you were coming into a situation that might be insurmountable?
No. Actually, when I first got here, I talked to Dr. Woods because, we were both new. He got here, I think, in April, and I arrived sometime in June. And we talked all the time because we weren't from here, and we didn't really, we knew of the history, but we also agreed that that wasn't our history, and that's not how we do things. So we would just take one interaction at a time. That's what we do. That's how, like you said, it was the norm. Awesome. The way things become the norm is by repeating them. And I remember we were on the phone one day, and he said, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. I said, hey, something's going to happen. On how you respond. And something happened. It was a fight between kids or whatever, and a mom came in upset, and he was going to discipline the young man. But the mom left, and she posted on Facebook, and I was like, oh no, what did she post? He goes, my son did something that he shouldn't have done, but I met with the principal, and I left there feeling respected, valued, and I know he cares about my son. And I was like, and he was like, we got this, and I always joke with him about what's happening, but he says he manages one period at a time. And when you line up all those periods, then you have a day, then you have a week, then you have a month, then we have a school year. And when I would sneak into the schools during the high school and talk to the kids who were there, the juniors and seniors, when everything was going down, and they would say, the school just feels a lot less tense. And that's because of Dr. Woods' leadership. Because a lot of the teachers, a lot of the students, a lot of the staff are still there. It's him at the top and a few folks that he brought in, and how they respond daily to the parents, to the staff. Now, it's not all perfect, but I can tell you the first year we were there, the newspaper came in to watch, and people come in to visit the school, and they were expecting chaos. But the halls would be clear. There'd be a few kids walking around with a bathroom pass or a guidance counselor pass, going to class, and they would go, "Is school open?" And he was like, "Yeah, school's open." It just wasn't what was portrayed in the media. So,
right.
So just creating a daily new expectation of positive behavior And also, with his social media presence, kids were fighting to be on his Facebook page. Not physically fighting, but they were competing to be on his. And it felt, and he would show just regular stuff happening. Kids eating lunch, kids walking the halls, kids high-fiving each other, kids just talking, which changed the perception that was out there in the public that this was a chaotic type place where it was just kids going to school.
So it appears that, clearly, the two of you had a plan. And I guess the question is did you feel that you had to spend a lot of time getting to know each other so that the two of you felt comfortable in being able to trust one another in effectuating that plan? Because whatever it is that you discussed, clearly it has made, a huge impact, on just not just Woodland Hills, but every other school district that's watching you from afar.
Let me go back to your previous question, Mr. Hollis. Coming in, like you said, the articles were there, the news clips were there, the Facebook posts, what they call them, YouTube clips. I was 100% confident that I would be able to interact and adapt to the students. The people that I was worried about, number one, was you, Mr. Hollis, because when I got in, when you're on TV and you're giving those speeches, your face, you had a game face. So the day I got voted in, the next day I reached out to you and I said, I introduced myself and I said I would like the opportunity to meet with you to discuss my plan for the district, because I knew if anything was to go awry, you was getting a call. So I wanted to introduce myself to you, let you know basically my philosophy, my approach. And if you remember, you said, I don't know about that social media, you making yourself too accessible. But in this situation, we had to be accessible. We had to have the parents know what was going on inside the schools. We had to have the community know and understand what we were doing. It couldn't be a cloak and dagger, backdoor midnight secret. Everything had to be 100% transparent. And I think that's how we were able to get the growth that we got. I sat in on Mr. Harris's interviews when he did his roundtable. I sat way in the back. I was just chilling. He pointed me out. He said, "Hey, I know you." I said, I'm looking around. I'm like, me. And he got hired. And from the first day, we just communicated and we made it. We had the same philosophy of the transparency. We were going out to community days. We were going to churches. We were going to public viewings, graduation parties. We did everything because we wanted everybody to understand that, hey, we are no longer a part, or we never was a part of the old regime, and this is who the new regime. This is who we are. Welcome. If you need something, let me know. And I think that transparency was another factor. And along with the changes, I know you guys, I don't want to get ahead of the questions, but there was a plethora of changes that we put in place and things that we did that we had to go against multiple entities. I'll just say it like that, not to pull anybody's card.
Sure. Listen, I certainly recall the conversation that you and I had. And I think that what I said to you is that, my allegiance was with the children. My goal was to make sure that the children were being cared for. Absolutely. And that, it sounded to me that your feelings were sincere. I was honored that you thought enough to call me. As a matter of fact, it's one of the few times that I think I've ever gotten a phone call, so, sitting down with you and meeting you and being able to shake your hand, and listening to, your purpose and your plan, I thought that was very brilliant, certainly brilliant of you. Yes, I was a bit, concerned that, you being, in the social media, platform so soon could potentially expose you. But I think ultimately you were 300% correct. That social media stuff that you had, with those children smiling, it showed one, how committed you were to the school. It showed that the children were buying into it. It showed that the process that had gone on for 10 years prior to you getting here, that heavy hand that these children were used to, was not necessary. It was not necessary. And that's the reason why I believe it's so important, that we showcase what you guys were doing, because this could be a model for other school districts to follow. And I'm not saying that, the same situation is going to apply to everyone, but, the two of you have very, very, different approaches. But at the same time, I mean, you took something that had been going on for 10 plus years, and it seems to me that you've done a yeoman's job in turning it around in what, 2 to 3 years? I think you guys have been on for 3 years now. 2 years.
1.5.
0.5. This is the second graduation.
Yeah, right. So look,
1.5 years. Amazing. Utterly amazing. Just utterly amazing. Let's talk about the social media stuff. I know that you have a background in that, Dr. Woods. What was your plan? What was your approach? I mean, were you afraid that this whole thing could blow up in your face? Mr. Harris, were you concerned? I mean, obviously you're the superintendent. There's a great deal of history with respect to some of the things that were going on at Woodland Hills, and now you're putting everything on social media, and you're kind of opening yourself up for commentary. So I'd like to hear what your thoughts were relevant to that.
Well, I mean, I've been a superintendent before, and Dr. Woods has been a principal before. So you're used to public always criticizing or second guessing your decisions. It's like being a head football coach. When you decide to go for it and it's 4th and 8 and you score, you're a genius. But if you don't score, then you're a fool. So when Dr. Woods and I sat down, we have the same philosophy. Sometimes we have different approaches, but we both value each other's opinion. And also we want to do the best, what's right for kids. So if he thought that showing students just being kids and teachers just being kids would work, I'm like, go for it. Mm-hmm. And there have been some positives, a lot more positives than negatives. And he's putting himself out there for those, how people are, those trolls when they get online. They'll say whatever they feel like saying when they're sitting in their mom and dad's basement, feeling protected, and they'll say whatever they want to. But when things have gotten out of control, I contacted him and said, hey, just be careful, because, certain people out there have a hatred. They don't want to see Woodland Hills be successful. They really don't. A lot of folks out there that we came in contact with more than anything else, and maybe Dr. Woods could, maybe disagree with me, but what I've seen was didn't want him to be successful or us to be successful in this district, because they were opposed to the whole district's formation in the beginning. So the disruption that was before us was just substantiated what they thought was going to happen. So then you get two outsiders come in who look like us, who embrace diversity, who embrace the students and the power that diversity could bring. And he's just showcasing that. There were a few folks out there, not a lot, a few folks who were vocal, obscene towards Dr. Woods. And they would contact me, and I would say, I would tell them, hey, just be careful, because there's some folks out there who don't want to see a 95% graduation rate when it's up from 80. That's the highest graduation rate under Dr. Woods in a decade. We achieved the first year, 95%. And that was done by working with those students who would leave, sitting down with them and building a plan. So yeah, they had a large cohort of students who would do fine. Woodland Hills is a great school. And we sat down the first week and said, wow, there's so many resources here, more than anywhere that we've come from. Let's utilize these resources, but let's showcase those resources also and put them to good use. And let's look at those students who would leave. There are kids on the street now when I drive past, yo, Mr. Harris, because we got them a diploma. We didn't let those doors shut on them. And that's what we do. And the whole social media thing, it was brilliant, because this year with Dr. Woods, we raised almost, I guess $250,000 for technology. And that wasn't a plan to say, hey, let's get a Facebook page, let's get a Twitter site, let's get an Instagram site and start soliciting funds. That support came because of the outward openness he has established within the district and that network, where it was never geared towards raising funds. It was to showcase what was happening, to open dialogues back and forth. Now, I tell the principals, I don't like you communicating with parents on Facebook or social media. I don't like it, because it's unmonitored and things can be said that are inappropriate. And we have things set up internally that we can monitor it and protect them, honestly.
Absolutely.
But a lot of people do. We'll send a quick question on Facebook and then they respond, and it's manageable. But I think what Dr. Woods has done through the use of social media, because I'm only on, like LinkedIn for business purposes. I'm not on Facebook because I know what could be said. I just don't want to hear it all the time. But him putting himself out there, it made that connection with the public that was missing. And because all the connection was before was on ABC, NBC, CBS, on the news.
Yes, sir.
And he just thought that was the way to go back and forth with people, and it works. But I think the success is not just through social media, it's opening that window into what the day-to-day life is of a Woodland Hills student. And it isn't all about being tased or punched in the mouth by police or any of those things. It's not a violent institution. It's a positive place. It's a great theater program, great basketball team, girls and boys, rugby, football, theater, everything that's available. We have kids getting full scholarships to Duquesne University, going to military academies. It's nothing that's unique about our school versus some of the higher elite high schools in the area. We are on par and could compete with any of those. Just needed sound leadership and support of those families and give them a voice, and that's what he's done.
Amen.
And that's trickled down the other schools.
We've got the superstar here, so let's hear your perspective, Dr. Woods.
So I use social media at my previous district, and actually my tech guy, his name was Scott Meisner. He actually introduced it to me a year before I started using it, and I said, "You got to be crazy! Like, you trying to get me fired? If I start doing this, it's going to be overwhelming." But that was in the early stages of social media. We didn't know what social media could do. And then as I saw social media evolve, and I saw how, if it's used appropriately, how efficient it could be. Some districts spend tens of thousands of dollars on media consultants. Some people have, huge HR or media people on staff, or if they send out maybe 50,000, 35,000 for a publication. We were able to get our story out 100% free. It was we didn't pay a dime for any of the coverage. And like Mr. Harris said, all the stories were written, all the stories were advertised about the negatives. And as Mr. Harris said, people were upset at me because I was posting the positives. I said, people are posting the negatives, but who's focusing on the positives? So they would say, well, you want to just focus on a field trip, or you just want to focus on assembly. That's not going to fix the school. I said, no, it's not going to fix the school today, but just understand we have a welcoming learning environment. The point that Mr. Harris said, all those teachers that were there in that 10-year span are the same teachers that we had during the change. The only difference is they had a platform and they had a support to help them and allow them to be, to explore. And then not only just to explore and to take chances, we say educated, calculated chances, but just to take chances to go outside the box. And then to have that be, advertised, publicized, and celebrated it just grew and it grew and it grew. And the one thing about the page is it's 150% about the students in the school. It's none of my personal opinions. It's none of my personal reflections. It's 100% just a microscope or a lens of our school and our students. And I just feel that more people needed to see what was going on, and more people needed to hear about some of the things that were happening, in addition to some of the things that we brought since Mr. Harris and I have been on board. But I always say, if I ever get another job, I'm not touching social media, but I think at this point I'm stuck.
I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying it's been an overwhelming response. And then the point that Mr. Harris brought up, we raised $243,000 and some change.
Amazing.
In I would say a week or two's time. And as he said, the following was built on the love of Woody High. We call ourselves the village. We talk about the village. We talk about the community. We talk about giving back. The following was already there. When I walked into this, I was like, if we get 10 grand, that'll be dope. If we get 10 grand, that'll help a couple seniors. By the end of the weekend, we had 25,000. In less than 3 full days, we had 25,000 in the bank, in the thing. So
he called me. Okay, hold on. He called me Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon. It was one of those days I'm home in the kitchen, making waffles. And he called me. He goes, "Hey, I got a problem." I said, "What?" He goes, "Well, I did this little fundraiser. I got like $3,500. I don't know where to put it." I said, "Okay." Then the board president calls. She goes, "Dr. Woods is doing a fundraiser." I said, "Yeah, he's got $3,500. She's like, "Wow, that's amazing. Well, let's set something up on Monday, and we could, how to do it." Day or so later, I got $25,000. I got a problem. I got too much money. I said, "Oh, okay."
That's a good problem to have.
No, but then we reached out to the foundation who are used to collecting funds, large sums of money. A week or so later, they call. "All right, we got $100,000. We got a lot of funds here." We said, "Well, we can use it for our technology." A couple of days later, we got $200,000. We're like, companies are calling, organizations are calling. It's like, oh my gosh. Okay. It's good. And I was like, "Okay, Dr. Woods, this is good." But it just, the love was out there.
Yeah.
And it was all because of the connections and the community engagement that was established. And I tell you, every dollar given was a dollar in support of what this man was doing at the high school. Okay? That's what the dollars were for. Because he said we needed this, and the community came out in force. Every dollar given was a dollar in support. It wasn't about buying Chromebooks. It was because he said, we need this, and that's when people came out. So he's being modest, but every dollar given was in support of this man.
Oh, he's absolutely being modest. There's no question about that. And that, that is, you both are being modest because, I remember when COVID-19, came out, and, I remember some of the, I saw some of the feeds, on other people's pages, where they were discussing, the children not having computers. And some of the comments were like 300 plus, it was hectic. As much as I love, Dr. Woods, and I wanted to come to his aid, I was like, I don't know if I want to get in the middle of that. But the both of you were able to get a hold of this thing, create a plan, appeal to the people that supported the district, and make it so that every senior had an ability to continue their education so that they could graduate. That is not a good thing. That is an amazing thing. You did it with very little, and you did it in such a way that these children are able to look back on their senior year and say that they were a part of something special. I mean, I clap, I silently cheer, whenever I see these things that you guys are doing, because I believe that I was a part of that. But honestly, the two of you are superheroes in my book. I am just so, and I'm sure there's a lot of other individuals in the district that feel exactly the same way that I do. Your commitment to these babies, your commitment to education, your creative way in dealing with the problems that come in every school district is just enlightening. So congratulations to the both of you.
We have to go to the root. We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough. And it is because of our effort toward getting straight to the root